The massive crystal chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with low conversations as representatives from 47 different species gathered for the weekly security briefing. Admiral Kethmore of the Thraxian Empire stood nearly 3 meters tall, his forearms crossed as he reviewed the latest reports about void-born attacks on Outer Rim worlds. His thick purple skin showed battle scars from decades of military service, and his yellow eyes held the cold calculation of a veteran warrior. Beside him, Counselor Vextra from the Zilani Collective floated in her mobility sphere, her translucent, blue form shimmering as she processed data streams directly into her enhanced neural network. The Zilani had given up physical bodies centuries ago, becoming beings of pure intellect housed in technological shells. Her voice carried the electronic harmony of multiple personalities speaking as one. The Voidborn have increased their raids by 30% in the last quarter, Vextra announced to the assembled delegates. We need additional military support for the outer colonies. Admiral Kethmore nodded his massive head. The Thraxian Third Fleet can provide 12 dreadnoughts, each carrying a full complement of fighters. The Draknari have promised 6 battle cruisers. What about the rest of you? Various species called out their contributions. The insectoid hive queens offered swarms of bioships. The crystalline Nexari promised their energy-based vessels. Even the Peaceful Aquatic Federation agreed to send their defensive platforms. The numbers were impressive. Over 300 major warships would join the campaign against the Voidborn threat. Then a new voice crackled through the communication system. The holographic projector in the center of the chamber flickered to life, showing 2 figures in strange uniforms standing on what appeared to be a ship's bridge. Both beings looked remarkably similar to each other, bipedal, with pale skin, dark hair, and small eyes. Their clothing was simple and functional, lacking the ornate decorations that most species use to display rank and status. Honored council members, the taller figure said with a slight bow. I am Captain Yoon Dae of the Earth Defense Force. This is my second-in-command, Commander Kim Soo. We represent the human species from the Sol system. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Most species present had never heard of humans before. Admiral Kethmore accessed his database and found only basic information. A young species that had recently developed faster-than-light travel, located in a quiet corner of the galaxy that most civilizations considered unimportant. We have received your broadcasts about the Voidborn threat, Captain Yoon Dae continued. Humanity wishes to join the Galactic Council and contribute to the defense of civilized space Counselor Vextra's electronic voice carried subtle amusement. We appreciate your interest, Captain. What military assets can your species contribute to our efforts? Commander Kim Soo stepped forward. Her face remained expressionless as she spoke. The human fleet consists of 12 vessels, ready for immediate deployment to any threatened sector. The chamber fell silent for a moment, then erupted in poorly concealed laughter. The Draknari ambassador's scales rattled with mirth. Even the usually stoic Nexari crystals chimed with what passed for humor among their kind. Admiral Kethmore tried to maintain diplomatic courtesy, but his voice carried obvious condescension. 12 vessels, you say? Forgive me, but our smallest support ships carry crews larger than your entire contribution. Perhaps you misunderstood the scale of warfare we conduct here. Captain Yoon Dae remained calm. I assure you, Admiral, our 12 ships represent the full commitment of human military forces to this campaign. Full commitment, repeated Vextra, her electronic voice dripping with synthetic sympathy. How quaint. Tell me, Captain, what is the displacement of your largest vessel? The flagship measures approximately 400 meters in length, Commander Kim Soo replied without hesitation. This time the laughter was open and sustained. The Thraxian dreadnoughts measured over 6 kilometers from bow to stern. Even their escort frigates dwarfed human capital ships. Admiral Kethmore's expression shifted from amusement to something approaching pity. My dear humans, he said in the tone one might use with children. I fear you may not understand the nature of the conflict we face. The Voidborn deploy fleets numbering in the thousands. Their bioships can strip the life from entire worlds. We are not talking about small skirmishes between neighboring systems. This is total war for the survival of galactic civilization. Captain Yoon-dae nodded slowly. We understand the stakes, Admiral. Humanity has been observing voidborne tactics for some time. We believe our forces can make a meaningful contribution. I'm sure you do, Vexitra said, her tone growing more patronizing. However, we cannot in good conscience send such a small force into direct combat with the voidborne. Perhaps there are other ways your species could assist. Supply runs, perhaps. Courier services. Medical aid to refugee populations. We came here to fight, Commander Kim Soo said quietly. Her dark eyes fixed on the floating Zilani with an intensity that made several nearby delegates shift uncomfortably. Admiral Kethmore studied the two humans more carefully. There was something in their bearing that didn't match their species' apparent weakness. They stood like soldiers, not diplomats. Their uniforms showed subtle signs of wear that suggested actual military service rather than ceremonial dress. Most puzzling of all, neither seemed surprised or offended by the Council's dismissive attitude. Very well, the Admiral said finally. If humanity insists on military deployment, we can assign your 12 vessels to Rim Sector 7. It's a quiet area with 3 inhabited systems and minimal voidborne activity. Your ships can provide patrol services and early warning for the local populations. The human captain and commander exchanged a glance that Admiral Kethmore couldn't interpret. It lasted only a moment, but something passed between them that set his warrior instincts on edge. Rim Sector 7 will be acceptable, Captain Yoon-dae said. When do we deploy? Immediately, if you wish, Vextra replied. The sector defense coordinator is Admiral Thessarian of the Aquatic Federation. She can brief you on patrol routes and communication protocols. Understood. The human fleet will depart for Rim Sector 7 within the hour. Captain Yoon-dae's image straightened in what the aliens assumed was a formal salute. Thank you for accepting humanity into the galactic community. The hologram flickered and vanished, leaving the council chamber in uncomfortable silence. Several delegates continued to chuckle quietly among themselves, but Admiral Kethmore found himself troubled by the encounter. Something about the humans didn't add up. Their calm acceptance of what amounted to exile suggested either naive inexperience or dangerous confidence. Odd little species, Vextra commented. Still, they seem eager to help. Even 12 ships might provide some early warning capability. Yes, Admiral Kethmore agreed, but his mind was elsewhere. In his long military career, he had learned to recognize certain types of warriors. The humans reminded him of the cold professionals who appeared calm before battle not because they were unafraid, but because they had already accepted the possibility of death and moved beyond it. Counselor Vextra was already moving on to other business, assigning fleet positions and supply lines for the main campaign against the voidborne strongholds. The other delegates gradually returned to their conversations about troop movements and strategic planning. The human contribution was quickly forgotten, dismissed as the gesture of a primitive species trying to seem important. But Admiral Kethmore continued to stare at the empty holographic projector. Something in Commander Kim Soo's eyes haunted him. She had looked at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization with the patient expression of someone watching fools make a terrible mistake. He made a mental note to monitor the situation in Rim Sector 7 more closely than usual. As the council session concluded and delegates began filing out of the crystal chamber, Admiral Kethmore accessed his personal communication system and sent a priority message to his intelligence division. He wanted a full background report on this human species within 24 hours. Something told him that the galaxy's dismissal of humanity might prove to be a costly error in judgment. The massive Thraxian warrior had survived this long by trusting his instincts, and right now those instincts were screaming that 12 small ships commanded by calm humans might be far more dangerous than 300 alien dreadnoughts. Lieutenant Park Jun sat in the cramped cockpit of his reconnaissance ship, the Soul's Pride, as it drifted silently near the edge of Rim Sector 7. 3 weeks had passed since the human fleet arrived in what the Galactic Council clearly considered a backwater assignment. The 12 human vessels had spread out across the sector in what appeared to be standard patrol formation, but Park Jun knew better. Every movement, every position had been carefully calculated by Captain Yoon-dae and his tactical staff. The humans weren't patrolling, they were preparing. Park Jun's modified sensors swept the dark space beyond the sector boundary, searching for the energy signatures that would announce the arrival of something that shouldn't exist in this quiet corner of the galaxy. His console chimed softly. Park Jun leaned forward, his dark eyes scanning the readouts with practiced efficiency. At first, the readings made no sense. Space itself seemed to be bending, twisting into shapes that violated basic physics. Then, the darkness began to move. The Voidborn emerged from the space between dimensions like nightmares becoming real. Their biomechanical ships defied easy description. Part living organism, part advanced technology, all hungry darkness that seemed to absorb light itself. Park Jun had studied the intelligence reports, but seeing them in person sent ice through his veins. Hundreds of vessels poured through the dimensional rift, their organic hulls pulsing with malevolent life. The smallest Voidborn ships measured over 1 kilometer in length, their surfaces covered with feeding tentacles and sensor clusters that resembled diseased eyes. The largest craft stretched nearly 10 kilometers from bow to stern, bristling with weapons that could crack planets like eggs. Park Jun activated his emergency beacon and began transmitting on the encrypted human frequency. All units, this is Soul's Pride. Voidborn emergence in progress at coordinate 77 Alpha. Count is approximately 1,500 vessels and rising. Repeat. Massive Voidborn fleet entering Rim Sector 7. The response came immediately from Captain Yoon Dae aboard the flagship. Confirmed, Soul's Pride. Execute Protocol Omega immediately. All human vessels acknowledge. One by one, the other ships checked in. Commander Lee Dae-bin from the Busan Hammer, Captain Choi Min aboard the Tactical Coordination Vessel, Commander Han Sol from the stealth frigate Incheon Ghost. Each captain confirmed receipt of orders with the calm professionalism that marked human military communication. Park Jun engaged his ship's advanced cloaking system and began moving closer to the Voidborn formation. The Soul's Pride had been designed specifically for this type of mission. Reconnaissance and intelligence gathering in situations where larger ships would be detected and destroyed. His vessel was barely 50 meters long, smaller than a Voidborn fighter craft, and equipped with sensor technology that the Galactic Council had never seen. As he watched, the alien invasion force began organizing itself with terrifying efficiency. The Voidborn moved like a single organism, their individual ships responding to commands transmitted through bio-neural networks. Their target became clear as the fleet oriented toward the 3 inhabited worlds of Rim Sector 7, home to nearly 4 billion innocent beings. Soul's Pride to command, Park Jun transmitted. Voidborn are moving toward population centers. Estimated arrival at primary world in 6 hours. Understood, Captain Yoon Dae replied. Continue observation and data collection. Do not engage. Unless directly threatened, Park Jun acknowledged and settled in to watch the approaching disaster. According to everything the Galactic Council knew about Voidborn tactics, this battle was already over. 1,500 bioships against 12 human vessels represented odds that no sane military commander would accept. The smart move would be to evacuate what populations they could and retreat to fight another day. But Park Jun had served under Captain Yoon Dae for 3 years, and he had learned that human tactical doctrine didn't always follow conventional wisdom. The human fleet wasn't retreating. Instead, they were moving into what looked like scattered defensive positions around the system's outer edge. To alien observers monitoring the situation from distant sensors, it appeared that the humans were panicking. Their small ships spread out across vast distances, seemingly trying to avoid direct confrontation with the overwhelming Voidborn force. Admiral Thessarian of the Aquatic Federation sent increasingly urgent messages offering to coordinate an evacuation, but received only brief acknowledgments from Captain Yoon Dae. Commander Lee Dae-bin positioned the Busan Hammer near a cluster of asteroids, using the rocky debris as cover while her crew made final preparations for combat. Her ship specialized in close-range assault, equipped with weapon systems that most alien species considered primitive but effective. The Busan Hammer looked like a predator settling into an ambush position. Captain Choi Min, aboard the coordination vessel, established communication links with all human ships while simultaneously monitoring Voidborn transmissions. His crew worked frantically to decode the bio-neural command frequencies that controlled the alien fleet. Understanding enemy communications had been a human military priority since the first tribal conflicts on Earth. The stealth frigate Incheon Ghost vanished completely from all sensors as Commander Han Sol engaged experimental cloaking technology. Her ship became a ghost haunting the edges of the battlefield, invisible to both Voidborn and Allied detection systems. Only other human vessels could track her position through quantum-encrypted beacons. Park Jun continued his surveillance mission, documenting Voidborn fleet composition and tactical deployment. What he observed sent chills through his trained military mind. This wasn't just a raid or probe. It was a full-scale invasion designed to harvest every living thing in the sector. The bioships carried specialized equipment for planetary consumption, technology that could strip the atmosphere from worlds and process all organic matter into fuel for their endless expansion. Soul's pride to all units, he transmitted. Confirmed harvester configurations on primary Voidborn vessels. This is an extinction-level event. They intend to consume everything. The response from Captain Yoon Dae carried grim satisfaction. Acknowledged. Execute Phase 2 of Protocol Omega. All units confirm ready status. One by one, the human ships reported their readiness for whatever Captain Yoon Dae had planned. Park Jun noticed that none of the transmissions showed fear or desperation. His fellow humans spoke with the calm professionalism of workers preparing for a difficult but familiar task. As the Voidborn fleet approached the inner system, their bioships began deploying in attack formation. Massive harvester vessels moved toward the populated worlds while fighter swarms spread out to eliminate any resistance. The alien fleet moved with predatory confidence, clearly expecting minimal opposition from whatever primitive defenses they might encounter. The first Voidborn scouts passed within detection range of human vessels and dismissed them as insignificant threats. To beings that regularly destroyed civilizations spanning multiple star systems, 12 tiny ships represented no more danger than insects. The alien commanders focused their attention on the real prize, 4 billion lives waiting to be harvested. Park Jun watched as the enemy fleet committed to their attack approach, spreading out to engulf the inner system like a biological net, designed to catch fleeing prey. The Voidborn had made the same mistake as the Galactic Council. They had judged human capability based on the size of human ships. All units, this is command. Captain Yoon Dae's voice carried across the encrypted frequency. Voidborn fleet is committed to attack formation. Initiate engagement sequence in 30 seconds. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. Show them what humanity can do. Park Jun felt his pulse quicken as he prepared to witness something that would either be a heroic last stand or the most one-sided massacre in galactic history. Around him, the Voidborn fleet continued its inexorable advance toward the helpless worlds, confident in their overwhelming superiority. The aliens had no idea that they were about to discover why humanity had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war against impossible odds. They were about to learn that sometimes the smallest predators were also the most dangerous. In 30 seconds, the galaxy would witness the difference between civilization and survival instinct made manifest. In 12 human warships, the Voidborn fleet swept through the outer reaches of Rim Sector 7 like a plague of living darkness. Their biomechanical ships pulsed with organic energy as they approached the 3 inhabited worlds that contained billions of helpless lives. The alien commanders felt the familiar hunger that drove their species, the need to consume, to harvest, to feed the endless expansion of their collective consciousness. Commander Han Sol watched from the bridge of the Incheon Ghost as the enemy formation passed within mere kilometers of her cloaked position. Her stealth frigate remained invisible to Voidborn sensors, a ghost haunting the edges of their fleet. The enemy ships looked even more terrifying up close. Their hulls crawled with biomechanical components that shifted and writhed like living skin stretched over mechanical bones. Incheon Ghost to command, she whispered into her communications array. Enemy fleet has committed to final approach vector. Harvester vessels moving toward primary population centers. Fighter swarms deploying in standard consumption pattern, Captain. Yoon Dae's response came through the quantum-encrypted channel. Acknowledged, Ghost. Begin Phase 1. Show them what real predators look like. Han Sol smiled grimly as she activated the first sequence of humanity's response to impossible odds. Her crew had spent weeks preparing for this moment, positioning quantum mines at precise coordinates throughout the sector. The Voidborn had ignored the tiny human vessels as they went about their seemingly random patrol routes, never realizing that each movement was part of an elaborate trap. The Incheon Ghost emerged from stealth mode directly beneath the largest Voidborn command vessel. For a brief moment, Han Sol's frigate appeared on enemy sensors as nothing more than cosmic debris. Then her ship unleashed hell. Quantum mines detonated throughout the Voidborn formation in a carefully choreographed sequence. Each explosion created gravitational anomalies that pulled nearby enemy ships off course, disrupting their precise bioneural coordination. The aliens had never encountered weapons that attacked the fabric of space itself, and their formations began to collapse into chaos. But Han Sol wasn't finished. Her ship dove between two massive Voidborn cruisers, using their own bulk as cover while deploying micromines directly into their engine intakes. The biological components that powered enemy vessels reacted violently to foreign contamination, causing internal explosions that rippled through entire ship sections. First phase complete, Han Sol reported as she guided her ship through a maze of confused enemy vessels. Enemy coordination disrupted, moving to secondary targets. Across the battlefield, Captain Nam Hai prepared to demonstrate another aspect of human military innovation. Her carrier vessel Jeju Storm looked pathetically small compared to the Voidborn bioship surrounding it, but appearances could be deadly deceptions. While alien species built fighter craft large enough to carry multiple crew members and heavy weapons, humans had taken a different approach. Launch all drones, Nam Hai commanded. The Jeju Storm opened like a mechanical flower, releasing not dozens but thousands of tiny autonomous units. Each drone measured less than a meter in length and carried a single microfusion warhead. 2 Voidborn sensors, they appeared as harmless as space dust, until they began moving with purpose. The drone swarm descended on enemy vessels like mechanical wasps attacking a giant. Their small size made them nearly impossible to target with conventional weapons designed to fight capital ships. Voidborn point defenses fired uselessly at targets too small and too numerous to track effectively. Individual drones began attaching themselves to critical systems on enemy vessels. Biomechanical sensors that guided Voidborn ships suddenly went dark as microfusion explosions destroyed them with surgical precision. Engine clusters that had powered the aliens across interstellar distances failed as human technology introduced chaos into their organic systems. Jeju Storm to all units, Nam Hai reported. Drone deployment successful. Enemy sensor networks compromised. Recommend immediate exploitation of tactical advantage. Commander Lee Da-bin had been waiting for exactly this moment. The Busan hammer emerged from its hiding place among the asteroids, like a predator springing from ambush. Her assault vessel represented the sharp end of human military doctrine, concentrated firepower delivered with devastating precision. The Busan hammer accelerated directly toward the center of the Voidborn formation, its engines pushing the ship to velocities that stressed the limits of human engineering. Lee Da-bin had calculated the approach vector perfectly, using gravitational effects from nearby celestial bodies to mask her ship's true speed until the last possible moment. Enemy vessels tried to intercept the charging human ship, but their targeting systems had been crippled by drone attacks. Biomechanical weapons fired wild patterns into empty space while the Busan hammer slipped between their defensive grids like a knife between ribs. Time for a lesson in human tactics, Lee Da-bin muttered as her ship reached optimal firing position. The Busan hammer unleashed every weapon in its arsenal simultaneously. Particle beams designed to punch through the heaviest armor carved through Voidborn hulls like cutting tools through soft metal. Plasma torpedoes followed up the beam attacks, their fusion warheads detonating inside enemy vessels and turning their own biomechanical systems against them. But the most devastating weapons were the kinetic penetrators, solid slugs of dense metal accelerated to near-light speed. When they struck Voidborn ships, the impact released energy equivalent to nuclear weapons. Alien hulls that had survived bombardment from entire alien fleets cracked open like eggs under the focused fury of human engineering. Engineer Kang Bo-ram watched the battle unfold from her position aboard the support vessel Daegu Forge. Her ship looked the least threatening of all human vessels, a blocky utilitarian craft that seemed designed for cargo transport rather than combat. The Voidborn had dismissed it entirely, focusing their attention on the obvious threats posed by assault ships and fighters. This proved to be another fatal mistake. The Daegu Forge represented humanity's talent for turning any situation to their advantage. As Voidborn ships died around her, Kang Bo-ram deployed specialized collection drones to harvest the wreckage. Daegu Forge to all units, she announced. Raw materials collection in progress. Initiating battlefield manufacturing protocols. Within minutes, her ship began producing ammunition and replacement drones using destroyed Voidborn technology as raw materials. Human engineering turned enemy biomechanical components into weapons, specifically designed to counter alien defenses. The dead Voidborn fleet became resources for humanity's war machine. Captain Choi Min coordinated the entire battle from his tactical vessel, maintaining communication links between all human ships, while analyzing enemy responses in real time. His crew processed combat data faster than any alien computer network, identifying weaknesses and opportunities as they developed. Enemy attempting to regroup near the second planet, Choi Min reported. Recommend wolf pack formation to exploit their clustering. The human fleet responded instantly to his tactical guidance. Ships that had been fighting independent battles suddenly moved with coordinated precision, surrounding confused Voidborn vessels like wolves circling prey. Each human captain understood their role in a larger strategy that was being written and rewritten moment by moment. Lieutenant Park Jun continued his reconnaissance mission, documenting the impossible sight of 12 human vessels systematically destroying a force 50 times their size. His recordings would later become required study material for military academies across the galaxy, but in the moment he could barely believe what he was witnessing. The Voidborn had encountered thousands of alien species in their expansion across the galaxy. They had perfected techniques for overwhelming any organized resistance through sheer numbers and biological superiority, but they had never faced opponents who fought like humans, warriors who turned every disadvantage into a weapon and every moment of chaos into an opportunity. As the battle raged around him, Park Jun realized he was watching more than a military victory. He was witnessing the announcement of humanity's arrival as a galactic power. The species that the Council had dismissed as primitive was demonstrating tactical sophistication that left ancient civilizations looking like amateurs. The Voidborn, fleet that had confidently approached 3 helpless worlds, was dissolving into scattered groups of damaged ships, trying desperately to escape the tiny predators that hunted them through the darkness. For the first time in their species' history, the cosmic devourers had become the prey, and the hunt was just beginning. Admiral Kethmore stood frozen before his command display, his forearms hanging uselessly at his sides as he watched impossible battle reports stream in from Rim Sector 7. The massive Thraxian warrior had fought in dozens of campaigns against the Voidborn, leading fleets of hundreds of dreadnoughts against the biomechanical plague that threatened galactic civilization. He had never seen anything like what 12 human vessels were accomplishing. "This cannot be accurate," he rumbled to his intelligence officer. "Run full diagnostics on all sensor arrays. Check for system malfunctions or enemy interference." The young Thraxian technician's scales had turned pale with shock. "Sir, all systems are functioning normally. I have confirmed the data through 17 independent sources. The human fleet is winning." Winning was an inadequate word for what the humans were doing to the largest Voidborn invasion force on record. They weren't just defeating the enemy. They were dissecting them with surgical precision that spoke of deep understanding of biomechanical weaknesses that other species had never discovered. Captain Yoon Dae's voice crackled through the communication array as he addressed his crew aboard the human flagship. His words were being intercepted and recorded by every major galactic intelligence service, but he spoke as if sharing casual observations with old friends. "This is exactly what I expected," Yoon Dae told his bridge crew. "The Voidborn rely on overwhelming force because they have never learned to adapt under pressure. They are like the first armies humanity faced thousands of years ago, dangerous in large numbers but predictable in their responses. Commander Kim Soo nodded agreement as she coordinated targeting data for the fleet. Their bio-neural networks make them efficient but inflexible. They cannot adjust their tactics once committed to an attack pattern. It is a fundamental weakness that any human military academy student would identify within minutes. Admiral Kethmore felt ice forming in his stomach as he listened to the casual conversation. The humans spoke about the terrifying Voidborn, the way experienced hunters might discuss common prey animals. There was no fear in their voices, no desperate improvisation, only the calm professionalism of experts applying well-understood principles. "Relay this transmission to the Galactic Council immediately," he ordered. "They need to understand what we are dealing with." On his main display, the tactical situation in Rim Sector 7 continued to evolve in humanity's favor. The human ship designated Gwangju Defender had taken massive damage from void-borne bioweapons that should have destroyed any vessel in the galaxy. Instead, Captain Roje continued fighting at full effectiveness despite losing nearly half his ship's systems. "Gwangju Defender to Fleet Command," Roje reported in the same calm tone his colleagues used. "Hull breach in sections 7 through 12. Engine efficiency down to 60%. Weapon systems operating at 80% capacity. Continuing engagement as planned." What terrified Admiral Kethmore was not just that the human ship kept fighting. It was that Captain Roje had immediately provided precise damage assessments and capability reports. Human vessels had been designed, from the beginning, to operate under conditions that would leave other ships helpless. Their redundant systems and modular construction allowed them to function effectively even after sustaining catastrophic damage. Counselor Vexitra's electronic voice joined the communication channel, her multiple personalities speaking in harmonious confusion. "This defies all established tactical doctrine. How are they achieving these results with such primitive technology?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Yang Soo-jin, pilot of the human scout ship that had been providing reconnaissance data, transmitted her final report as she prepared for what Admiral Kethmore recognized as a deliberate suicide attack. "All units, this is Seoul's Pride," Yang Soo-jin announced. "I have identified the Voidborn command nexus controlling their bio-neural network. Recommend immediate exploitation of target opportunity." Before anyone could respond, the tiny human scout accelerated directly toward a massive Voidborn command vessel. The enemy ship was 10 times larger than Yang Soo-jin's craft and protected by biomechanical defenses that had repelled attacks from entire alien battle groups. None of that mattered to the human pilot. Yang Soo-jin drove her ship through the Voidborn defensive grid like a bullet through paper. Her scout vessel had been modified with experimental ramming equipment that focused the ship's entire kinetic energy into a single penetrating spike. When she struck the alien command ship, the impact released more destructive force than most alien weapons could generate. The Voidborn command vessel split open along its entire length, its bio-neural networks severed by precisely applied violence. Across the battlefield, hundreds of enemy ships suddenly lost coordination as their command structure collapsed. What had been an organized invasion fleet became a collection of confused individual vessels. "Target eliminated," Yang Soo-jin reported, with satisfaction just before her ship's reactor overloaded and consumed both vessels in nuclear fire. Admiral Kethmore stared at his display in stunned silence. The human pilot had deliberately sacrificed herself to create a tactical advantage for her fleet. But what shook him to his core was the casual way she had done it. Not as a desperate last resort, but as a calculated military decision that any human officer might make. "They treat death as just another tactical option," he whispered. Commander Kim Soo's voice confirmed his worst fears as she coordinated the fleet's response to the command ship's destruction. "Excellent work, Seoul's Pride. All units exploit enemy confusion immediately. Standard human doctrine applies. Maximum aggression while they cannot coordinate responses. Standard human doctrine." The words echoed in Admiral Kethmore's mind as he watched the remaining human vessels press their attack with renewed fury. These tactics weren't improvised responses to desperate circumstances. They were established procedures that humanity had developed over centuries of warfare. Captain Choi Min provided tactical analysis that made Admiral Keithmore's military training seem primitive by comparison. Enemy attempting to retreat toward dimensional rift. Recommend interdiction pattern 7 to prevent escape. Historical data suggests Voidborn will attempt to regroup and return with larger forces if allowed to. Withdraw historical data. The humans had been studying Voidborn tactics long before making contact with the Galactic Council. They had observed, analyzed, and prepared countermeasures while other species fought desperate holding actions against an enemy they barely understood. Engineer Kang Bo-ram demonstrated another aspect of human military philosophy that left alien observers speechless. Her support vessel had been harvesting wreckage throughout the battle, but now she revealed the true purpose of her collection efforts. Daegu forged to all units, she announced. Battlefield analysis complete. Enemy biomechanical. Systems show 17 critical vulnerabilities. Deploying specialized ammunition designed for voidborn physiological weaknesses. Her ship began launching modified weapons that targeted specific aspects of alien biology. Projectiles that interfered with bioneural networks, explosives that triggered allergic reactions in organic ship components, viral programs that corrupted the interface between biological and mechanical systems. The humans were not just winning the battle, they were learning from it. Every voidborn ship they destroyed provided data that made them more effective against the next target. Their entire military doctrine was built around the concept of adaptive warfare that turned enemy strengths into exploitable weaknesses. Counselor, Vextra's voice carried electronic distress as she processed the implications. They are treating this engagement as a field experiment. They are testing weapons and tactics against live targets to improve their effectiveness. Admiral Keithmore nodded grimly. They are not fighting to survive this battle. They are fighting to win the war that comes after it. Commander Shin Woo took control of salvage operations as the battle entered its final phase. His vessel moved through the wreckage with methodical efficiency, cataloging destroyed voidborn technology and identifying components that could be reverse-engineered for human use. Shin Woo to command, he reported. Intelligence value of recovered materials exceeds projections. Recommend extended analysis of bioneural network architecture. This data could provide strategic advantage in future engagements. The humans were already planning their next battles while still fighting their first. Admiral Keithmore realized with growing dread that humanity viewed the Voidborn not as an existential threat but as a problem to be solved through superior tactics and technology. As the last enemy ships fled toward their dimensional rift, Captain Hyundai addressed his fleet with the quiet satisfaction of a teacher whose students had performed well on an exam. Excellent work, all units. Battle efficiency exceeded expectations. Casualties minimal. Intelligence gathered substantial. Prepare for debriefing and tactical analysis. We need to understand what we did right and what we can improve for next time. Admiral Keithmore stared at his display as the human fleet began organizing itself for post-battle operations. They spoke about facing the galaxy's greatest threat as if it were routine training exercise. They had just accomplished the impossible and were already focused on how to do it better. The crystal chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. 47 species that had dominated galactic politics for millennia sat in stunned silence as they processed the aftermath of what history would record as the Battle of Rim, Sector 7. The massive display screens showed footage that defied everything they thought they knew about warfare, technology, and the nature of military power itself. Admiral Keithmore stood before the assembled delegates, his four arms trembling slightly as he delivered his report. The proud Thraxian warrior looked like he had aged decades in the past few hours. His yellow eyes haunted by implications that would reshape galactic civilization. The human fleet has achieved total victory, he announced to the chamber. 1,500 voidborn vessels destroyed with 0 human casualties, 3 inhabited worlds saved, intelligence gathered that exceeds all previous data on enemy capabilities. Counselor, Vextra floated in her mobility sphere, her multiple personalities speaking in electronic harmony tinged with something approaching disbelief. Please repeat those numbers, Admiral. Our processing networks must have encountered an error. No error. Kethmore replied grimly. 12 human vessels faced odds of 125 to 1 and achieved decisive victory in under 6 hours. They did not merely survive the encounter, they dominated it completely. The holographic projector flickered to life, showing Captain Yoon Dae and Commander Kim Soo standing on their bridge. But everything about the transmission had changed from their first appearance before the Council. The aliens no longer saw primitive newcomers asking for acceptance. They saw the faces of apex predators who had just announced their arrival at the top of the galactic food chain. "Honored Council members," Captain Yoon Dae said with the same quiet dignity he had shown before. "The human fleet has completed its assignment in Rim Sector 7. We are prepared to receive new orders." The chamber remained silent for long moments. Species that had spent centuries debating military strategy suddenly found themselves without words. How did you give orders to beings who had just redefined the possible limits of tactical achievement? Counselor Vextra was the first to find her voice. "Captain Yoon Dae, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I must apologize for our earlier assessment of human military capabilities. We clearly failed to understand the true nature of your forces." "No apology necessary," Captain Yoon Dae replied. "Your reaction was understandable given the information available to you. Most species measure military strength by the size of their vessels rather than the effectiveness of their crews." Commander Kim Soo stepped forward, her dark eyes scanning. "The assembled delegates with clinical assessment. We have analyzed Voidborn tactical doctrine and identified systematic weaknesses in their approach to warfare. The enemy relies on biological superiority and numerical advantage because they have never faced opponents who adapt faster than they can respond." Captain Shin Woo joined the transmission, carrying data tablets that made several alien military leaders lean forward with desperate interest. "Our analysis suggests that current galactic defensive strategies are fundamentally flawed. You have been fighting the Voidborn as if they were conventional military opponents rather than an adaptive biological system. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. Everything the galaxy's greatest military minds had developed to combat the Voidborn threat was worse than useless. It was actively counterproductive. Massive fleets and overwhelming firepower played directly into enemy strengths rather than exploiting their weaknesses." Admiral Kethmore cleared his throat, his voice carrying the humility of a veteran warrior acknowledging superior expertise. "Captain Yoon Dae, the Galactic Council would be honored to place you in command of all military operations against the Voidborn threat." Several delegates gasped at the suggestion. The Thraxian Empire had never voluntarily surrendered military authority to another species, let alone one they had dismissed as primitive only hours earlier. But Admiral Kethmore had spent his career studying warfare, and he recognized mastery when he encountered it. Captain Yoon Dae considered the offer for several moments before responding. "Command authority would be acceptable provided that human tactical doctrine is implemented across all allied forces. Traditional galactic military thinking must be abandoned entirely. What changes would you require?" asked the Draknari ambassador, his scales shifting color with nervous energy. Commander Oh Da-young appeared on the transmission, carrying analysis reports that would revolutionize galactic military theory. "First, all capital ship construction must be suspended immediately. Large vessels are liability rather than assets when fighting adaptive biological enemies. Second, crew training must emphasize flexibility and rapid decision-making rather than following established protocols." The suggestions sent shockwaves through the chamber. The assembled species had invested centuries in developing their massive fleets. The idea of abandoning dreadnoughts and battle cruisers in favor of smaller, more agile vessels challenged the fundamental assumptions of galactic civilization. "Third," Commander Oh Da-young continued, "intelligence gathering and enemy analysis must become primary strategic priorities. You cannot defeat opponents you do not understand, and the galaxy's current knowledge of Voidborn capabilities is dangerously incomplete." Engineer Kang Bo-ram joined the discussion, her practical voice cutting through diplomatic niceties. "Fourth, battlefield adaptation and resource utilization protocols must be implemented immediately. Every engagement should provide intelligence and materials for future operations. War is not about destroying enemies. It is about learning to destroy them more efficiently. The alien delegates struggled to process concepts that humanity had internalized over millennia of constant warfare. These were not suggestions for improving existing military doctrine. They were fundamental changes that would require rebuilding galactic civilization's entire approach to conflict. How long would such modifications require? Asked Counselor Vextra. Captain Yunde's response carried grim certainty. Based on our analysis of captured void-born intelligence, the galaxy has approximately 18 months before the next major invasion. Our victory in Rim Sector 7 was against a scouting force. The main void-born fleet contains over 50,000 vessels. The number hit the chamber like a physical assault. 50,000 biomechanical ships represented more destructive power than the combined fleets of every galactic civilization. Even with human tactical innovations, the coming war would test the limits of what organized resistance could accomplish. However, Commander Kim Soo added, our engagement provided critical intelligence about void-born command structures and biological vulnerabilities. We now understand how to disrupt their coordination networks and exploit their reliance on bioneural integration. Lieutenant Park Jun appeared on the transmission, carrying sensor recordings that would become the foundation of new military academy curricula across the galaxy. The enemy's greatest strength is also their greatest weakness. Their biological unity makes them powerful but predictable. Human tactical doctrine can exploit that predictability. Admiral Kethmore felt a strange mixture of hope and terror as he listened to the human officers casually discuss strategies for defeating the galaxy's greatest nightmare. These beings spoke about impossible odds with the confidence of professionals who had spent their entire species' history learning to overcome superior forces. The Galactic Council formally requests that humanity assume strategic command of all military operations, he announced. We place our fleets and our civilizations under human protection. Captain Yunde nodded slowly, accepting responsibility for the survival of trillions of lives across hundreds of worlds. Understood. We will need complete authority over military, production, training protocols, and strategic deployment. Traditional chain of command structures will be replaced with human tactical hierarchy. Granted, Counselor Vextra replied immediately. What are your immediate requirements? Send your best military officers to Sol System for tactical retraining, Commander Kim Soo instructed. Existing galactic military doctrine must be completely replaced with human warfare principles. Your crews need to learn how to think like predators rather than prey. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in contemplative silence. Representatives of ancient civilizations sat among the crystal formations, struggling to accept that their entire understanding of military power had been revolutionized by a species they had dismissed as irrelevant. Admiral Kethmore looked around the chamber, noting the expressions of his fellow delegates. Fear, respect, and dawning realization marked every face as they absorbed the implications of humanity's arrival on the galactic stage. We mocked their tiny fleet, he said quietly. We thought 12 small ships represented weakness rather than precision. We have learned today that humans do not build weapons to intimidate their enemies. They build weapons to kill them efficiently. The Galactic Council had sought to exile humanity to a forgotten corner of space. Instead, they had handed control of galactic civilization to the most effective military force the universe had ever produced. The galaxy's long night of terror was ending, but it would be replaced by something equally transformative.